Hello and welcome back to another video. The 30th anniversary of the PS1 is indeed today. That console is 30 years old. Oh boy. So I didn't grow up with the PS1, but I thought today would be a nice opportunity, even if I miss this by a few hours, to talk about my experience with the PS1 and my top 10 games, because I thought that'd be quite a fun thing to do. So, the PS1, I didn't grow up with. I didn't. My wife did. My wife grew up with that. She was super into Spyro, played a bit of Crash, from what I understand. But in general, it's a console that missed me by. So, for me, my first console growing up was the GameCube. Very much my cup of tea. Very much my cup of tea. Very much. PS1, I only got into about 13 years ago, give or take. So it turns out that we'd had a PS1 in the attic, or the loft, or whatever you want to call it, for about, I don't know, about part of a decade, before I found it. I just found it up there and I went, oh, Mum, what? She went, oh yeah, it's your cousin's. And I went, cool, it's mine now. So I laid claim, still got it. It's down there along with my, so that's my original PlayStation. I also have a PS1, so the mini one that Sony released 2000, I think. 2000 they released that. But yeah, quite a big fan of the PS1. It's not a system I typically buy for. It's one of those ones where I'm like, I'll pick up a game because it's there, rather than a game that, rather than a system I actively go looking for. Unlike the Saturn, where I'm always looking for new Saturn games, or the N64, where I'm always looking for new N64 games. PS1 kind of drifts in. I've got quite a big collection, as you can see. Got my top 10 here, so let's get into it. And starting off, we've got Beast Wars. This should be a good indicator that none of the games on this list are ones that, well, maybe one or two, but most of the games on this list are not games you will see on pretty much any other top 10. Most top 10s will be like, oh yes, Resident Evil and Tomb Raider and Spyro and Crash, and especially Final Fantasy VII. There's no Final Fantasy at all here. Absolutely not a single RPG, if I can help it. Not my cup of tea, to start. As evidenced by the fact that Beast Wars is number 10. Now, a friend of mine had this growing up. He used to play it a lot, from what I recall, but I never really got the opportunity to try it out until about, I don't know, 6-7 years ago. Picked it up. It's pretty solid. I've always loved Beast Wars. Grew up watching it on what was called Shake in the UK, growing up on Channels 5. I recently started watching it again. It's held up really well in every area apart from animation, which is kind of telling. But yeah, this game's very solid. It's a very good representation of that. You can play as 10 different Transformers, including all the Predacons at the time, which I think were Waspinator, Pterosaur, Megatron, Scorponok, and I want to say Tarantulas, but I could be wrong there. Yeah, that was, and then you play some Maximals, which included Dinobot, Cheetor, Rhinox, Rat Trap, and Optimus Primal. Now, I know there was one other Beast Wars game on the N64, which delved into what was called Transmetals, which I think was the second season, where a bunch of them got. So obviously Beast Wars, they turned into beasts, or dinosaurs or whatever. But with Transmetals, they kind of got cyborg forms. So they were still animals, obviously, but they turned into, like, I think one of them had, like, jump jets on his hips that allowed him to sort of fly, which was really fucking stupid. But, you know, I think that was Rhinox, actually, because I had the toy. But yeah, I love Beast Wars. Very solid, super solid. Absolutely love that series. So, game's really good as well. Moving on, we have Theme Hospital. big fan of Theme Hospital. I grew up with this, actually. Not this version, but I did grow up with the PC version, along with Dungeon Keeper 2. I'm a huge Bullfrog fan, massive Bullfrog fan. This isn't the last time you will see them, potentially, on this list. No, I don't think it is, actually. Is it? It might be. Oh no, it is the last time you see them on this list. Depressing. No, seriously though, huge fan of Bullfrog. Absolutely love Theme Hospital. It's just running a hospital, as evidenced by the name. It's part of the theme park, theme aquarium, theme hospital series, the theme series by Bullfrog. They were very good at Sims. Sim games. And yeah, I think Theme Hospital is probably my favourite after Dungeon Keeper 2. I've played a bit of Theme Aquarium, and I've played very little of Theme Park. But you know what, I couldn't really tell you if I've got that or not. I might just pick it up on Jaguar, because I'm collecting for Jaguar again. But yeah. Yeah, solid game. Floaty head will always be my favourite on this, because it's just their head turns into a balloon. It's very funny. But moving on. Abe's Exodus, not Abe's Odyssey. And I'll tell you why. This is strictly because this is a more condensed version of that game. I found the original Abe's Odyssey to be quite a slog. Quite a slog. I haven't actually got around to playing the remake of this. That Oddworld Inhabitants did, I think it was a couple of years ago. They did Soulstorm. I haven't actually got around to playing it. Been meaning to. It's been on my list. I had Big and Tasty for a while as well, which was the remake of Odyssey. But yeah, just haven't got around to it. And I like this game. I like this game a lot. I think it's a lot of fun. It's a lot more of what you could do in Odyssey, but more condensed, more focused, a bit harder. Or at least for what I found, it was a bit harder. But yeah, solid, good story. Moving on. That's probably one of the very few that you would see on other systems. Other lists of this nature. I'd argue there's maybe one more out of that lot. For example, you won't see Dune on there. I'm a huge Westwood fan. I love Command & Conquer. I love the first two. They're really good. I thought Command & Conquer Red Alert is fantastic. 3's my favourite by a good margin, if strictly for Tim Curry. Also for, George Takei. J.K. Simmons. I think Jonathan Pierce is in it as well. Quite a lot of people. Quite a lot of famous British actors. Or at least, I don't know, maybe not famous British actors. Certainly a bunch of kind of your staple cheesy kind of characters. I mean, J.K. Simmons is in a Christmas movie this year where he plays Santa, but he's ripped. So, yeah, I'm sure he's used to doing stuff like that. But Dune. Dune 2 was the first game to kind of popularise the concept of, well, RTSs as we know them. Real-time strategy games as we know them were popularised by the original Dune 2 on the Mega Drive, which I do have. I don't have it boxed, which bugs me incessantly, but here we are. Dune, on the other hand, they came back. They went, yeah, we made Command & Conquer. Went really well. Let's go back to Dune and make a really solid strategy game on the PS1 and on PC, obviously. But this has mouse support. This is one of the very few games that supports the PlayStation mouse. It's actually the main reason I own one, and it works very well. So, yeah, big fan of Dune. 3 different factions, works beautifully. You may have noticed a pattern. There are a few strategy games on this list. There is technically 2 more, but this one isn't. Ape Escape. Yeah, I really like this game. I'm not a big 3D platformer guy. I'm more of a strategy, first-person shooter, weird shit. I'm into weird shit. And a game designed solely for use with the analog thumbstick, which is pretty cool. The first game, you run around, collect a bunch of monkeys with fucking alarms on their hats, and it's a pretty solid time. I want to get into the rest of the series. The other 2 games aren't, well, the third game's kind of expensive, and then there's the 2 on PSP, and I think there was one more. I think there was one for the PlayStation Move. Tell me about it. which I don't have because I don't own a PlayStation Move for the PS3. But I do want to get into Ape Escape. Seems pretty solid. Now, my top 5, including Monster Rancher. Well, Monster Rancher 2 specifically. So in Europe, we never got Monster Rancher in general. The only version we got was a version of Monster Rancher 2, which they renamed to just Monster Rancher. Now, Monster Rancher had a really cool gimmick where you pop the disc in, you go to a temple in the game, and then it would prompt you to take the disc out and replace it with a CD. I haven't actively tried it with some of the game CDs I've got. I've been meaning to. But, yeah, it's really weird. But, in doing so, you pop the CD in, and you get a monster. You get a monster from it reading the CD. And from what I've heard, it runs with more modern stuff as well. You can put in something like, I don't know, who's modern? Pink's latest album. I don't know, I don't listen to modern music that much. But you can put in Pink's most recent album if it's on CD, and you could probably get a monster out of it, which is pretty cool. So yeah, it's a cool gimmick, and it's a cool concept. It's just, Monster Rancher never really came out in the West in general, like the anime did. I watched the crap out of the anime when I was younger. I watched shitloads of it, and it was brilliant. I can't remember what channel it was on. I think it was on Shake for a while. And I really liked Shake. It seemed tailored to me. It had stuff like Zetrix and Monster Rancher and Beast Wars and the old Kevin Sorbo Hercules before he went insane. Yeah. But that's kind of what that game reminds me of. Reminds me of that era. And all for it. Future Cop LAPD. Future Cop LAPD is a mech-based strategy game. So it's got 2 modes. It's got one where you and a friend basically do co-op and take on a bunch of missions together. But then it's got something called Precinct Assault, which is one of the single most interesting multiplayer options I think the PS1 actually has. Probably the single most interesting, because you play opposite your opponent, analog compatible. But yeah, you play opposite your opponent, and in the process, what you do is you basically control a sort of army whilst you're flying around as your mech. Very similarly to Herzog's Y, which is the other game that kind of popularized strategy, but more specifically MOBAs. So things like League of Legends, Awesome Nauts from back in the day, Guardians of Middle-earth. You can tell how many fucking MOBAs I played. But yeah, in general, it has that vibe. And it's really good fun. It's a lot of fun. It's a really solid game. This game's quite expensive nowadays. I think it's like 40, 50 quid. Which is a bit nuts for something that's so old. But yeah, solid game. Heartily recommend. Number 3. Number 3 is again another game that you're never going to figure out why it's or what it is. The Unholy War by Crystal Dynamics. Back when Crystal Dynamics made really weird shit. Basically, this game was a continuation of a sort of, or was kind of the next phase in a sort of trend set by a game called Archon. So Archon was a pseudo-chess game released in the 80s, I think. And it's a style of game you don't see that often, but it's basically a combination of a strategy game where you're slowly kind of moving your pieces across the map to either take out an enemy's fortress or take over territory, and a fighting game, which is really weird. The only other game that I can legitimately think of this style of off the top of my head is Wrath Unleashed, which was on Xbox, PS2, and GameCube. So, yeah, very specific vibe from those games. And Unholy War is a very good example of that. I mean, ignoring the fact there's paint on the case, it's such a solid 3D combat action game. It's just really good. It's chess with violence, is basically what I can sum it up as. And it's got a cool name, The Unholy War, which is strange because it's between monsters and robots, It's not actually about heaven and hell, so whatever. Final 2 games. Now, one of these is a game you would probably see on your general top 10 list for this particular system. It's something I've picked up recently, and it's another Crystal Dynamics game. It's not Tomb Raider. It's Legacy of Kain Blood Omen. Now, Blood Omen Legacy of Kain, sorry. This game is awesome. It's a top-down RPG of sorts, where you play as a vampire called Kain. And it's kind of the beginning of what is probably one of the best written series I have ever encountered in video games. They've recently announced a re-release of a remaster of the original, what do you call it? Soul Reaver games, which this had a demo for, which was nice. But, yeah, that doesn't involve Kain in a playable format. This is the first game where he's playable, then he's playable in Legacy and Blood Omen 2, and then he's playable in Defiance, and that's kind of where the series ended, unfortunately. It would be nice if it continued, but here we are. It's really, really, really solid. Like, I had this game a while ago, oh my god, it's out of the... Yeah, there we go, that's fine. I'm amazed how in good nick this particular version is, which it should be for £60. The game's expensive, and the reason I've spent so much on it is because my original copy didn't work. It didn't work on anything. It was broken, so I sold it to CEX. It's not like they check anything anyway. But yeah, I sold it to my local CEX, and they can deal with the fact that it doesn't work and get very angry customers. That version does, which is great. I tried it out on the Polymega, and it seems to work okay. We played some of these on that system, not too many. Some of them just don't work at all, but they work on the original hardware, so that's fine. Now you're probably wondering, Legacy of Kain. That's a huge game. That spawned probably one of the best franchises of the 5th and 6th gen. What the hell could beat that? It's probably a game you've not really heard of. Yeah, it's by a company you certainly have. It's Insomniac's first title on the PS1 that I know of. They then went on to do... Did they do Spyro? Or did they do Crash? Naughty Dog. Naughty Dog was Crash, Insomniac was Spyro. It's Disruptor. Now, I love Disruptor. It's a first-person shooter in an era where first-person shooters don't really work on consoles. And it plays really well. It gives you psychic powers. It gives you absolutely batshit insane weaponry. And it's just a hell of a lot of fun. It's genuine. Like, this is one of the first games I saw for the PS1. I saw it on Amazon back in the day, and I was like, what the hell is that? And much like ActRaiser on the SNES, it stuck in my brain. I was like, I need to get Disruptor, and for years I just couldn't find it. CEX don't have it on their website at all. And then I went into a local shop near me before it closed down, because I think they moved to a city a little further away. But in general, they had this on the shelf, and I went, oh my god! Didn't care it didn't have a manual. It plays well. It's amazing. Disruptor's fantastic. Go fucking play it. So that's it. That's it for this week. I've got a couple videos lined up over the next couple of weeks just before Christmas. I do have a bit of Christmas special in mind, but it's kind of something I have to film after Christmas. Kind of based on something I'm getting, which is exciting. I'm probably going to do a Jaguar video in the next couple of weeks because I've got a new one coming, and I've got about 5 games in the post with it. I've only picked up Cybermorph. And I think I'm hopefully getting one Christmas, but we'll see. I have no idea. We'll have to wait and see what Santa brings. But anyway, that's it for this week. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me ramble about the PlayStation's 30th anniversary and my top 10 games for it. And I will see you next time.